Today on the Playbook Podcast, President Donald Trump heads to Asia tonight. What we're watching. I have a glimpse into my exclusive conversation with Detroit Mayor and independent candidate for Michigan Governor Mike Duggan, and a look into New York Attorney General Letitia James's last-minute case request. Hello, I'm Adam Wren.
And I'm Megan Messerly. It's Friday, October 24th.
And this is the Playbook Podcast. So without further ado, here's what's driving the day. First off, President Donald Trump is headed to Asia tonight for a trip during which he will stop in Malaysia, Japan, and South Korea. Yesterday, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Trump would participate in a bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Malaysia after arriving on Sunday afternoon. That evening, he will participate in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Leaders Working Dinner. Trump will also visit Japan to participate in a bilateral meeting with the new Japanese Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi. Also reportedly on the agenda for the Asia trip is a bilateral meeting between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, his first in-person meeting with the president of China since 2019. Megan, you write in your story that this is, quote, the riskiest foreign trip of Trump's second term. What do you mean by that? And what are your sources telling you as far as what to watch?
Yeah, I've really spent the last week talking to folks inside the White House, around the White House, in the lead up to this Asia trip. And the one thing that just kept coming out in conversations is this idea that, the president's trips to Europe and the Middle East. I'm thinking about his trip to the UK, that first Middle Eastern trip he took, even the trip he just took to Israel and Egypt. All of those trips were fairly choreographed. I mean, again, even in the case of Israel and Egypt, there was a peace agreement on the table. We kind of knew how those events were going to go. With this one, of course, we have events on the table, but it's very uncertain what the outcome is going to be. And, central among those is this meeting between President Trump and President Xi. Of course, President Trump has spent the week hyping up this meeting, saying that there might be some sort of trade deal even that comes out of this meeting. Meanwhile, the Chinese throughout the week have said nothing about this meeting and have left things dangling. I mean, we are really in this incredibly intense situation with China right now, where both sides have massively escalated this trade war between the two countries. Trump is now looking for a way to get out of this. And for him, we've talked before in this podcast, he really sees these leader to leader meetings as a way to just sort of hash things out one-on-one and get things done. But I think it's worth underscoring how massive the action that China has taken against the U.S. is. They implemented these really sweeping export controls on any goods that contain even trace amounts of Chinese rare earths. Everything has Chinese rare earths these days, like your iPhone does, fighter jet sensors do, electric cars do. And so this just gives China massive leverage over supply chains. And this is something that a lot of China hawks are really worried about. I talked to Steve Bannon, Trump's former White House chief strategist, and he told me this is one of the riskiest trips any president of the United States has taken. And he said that the Chinese Communist Party has declared open economic warfare against America. Those are the words he used. And so this is a real gamble for the president. Does he take action that is strong against China? Does he come to some sort of temporary truce with China where the U.S. walks back these massive 100% tariffs it's threatened on China? What does President Xi want? I mean, these are a lot of unanswered questions that we have going into this Asia trip.
And Megan, we've talked a lot about on this podcast about how President Trump approaches diplomatic relations and trips like these in particular a little bit differently than his predecessors. Typically, a lot of outcomes and deliverables are pre-negotiated for weeks, if not months on end before these trips. Do you expect specific deliverables to emerge from this days-long trip?
It's a good question. There are a number of pieces that seem to be potentially coming together. Both Japan and South Korea had these sort of preliminary trade agreements they came to with the United States. In the case of South Korea, some of the details around the investment commitments they've made are being worked out, and it sounds like we might get more details around that out of this trip. There's also, some of these southeastern Asian nations that the president will have a chance to meet with and or be around when he's in Malaysia, are looking to finalize trade agreements. So we could see some significant movement there. I will say I spoke to an administration official about this trip, and what they told me is, uh, the president is going to Asia to close major trade deals. That's what they said, secure huge investments, and dramatically advance peace and security in the Indo Pacific. And they've said that the unprecedented results will speak for themselves. So they're really hyping up this trip and the potential for what could come out of it. But again, there's so many uncertain variables here, uncertain geopolitical dynamics in so many of these countries whose leaders the president is going to be meeting with. And this just creates a tricky situation and an uncertain situation going in.
Well, next this morning, I have some new reporting in Playbook on a conversation I had with Mike Duggan, the mayor of Detroit and Michigan, a key battleground state. He announced in December last year, after the disastrous results for Democrats in the election, that he would be running for governor to succeed term limited Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a Democrat, as an independent. Megan, and according to recent polls, he very well may succeed. He's running against Jocelyn Benson, a Democrat, fellow Democrat, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, and he's also running Megan against Republican John James. And he's looking pretty good in the polls. So a very fascinating political contender. We talk a little bit about the Democratic's national brand, Trump's incursion into blue cities like his, and a number of other topics.
You were talking about this, the transition that Mayor Duggan has made, from a Democrat to an independent. And that just strikes me as so interesting in this current moment we're in the Democratic Party right now. And you've done so much reporting on this, right? But Democrats are really trying to find their footing right now and figure out, who are we in the year 2025? And so it's so fascinating to have, a mayor literally change his affiliation and say, that I'm not running as a Democrat. So, what does his switch to running as an independent, like, what does that mean for the rest of the country?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, Michigan is a key battleground state. It will be a key battleground state for both Republicans and Democrats, particularly in next year's Senate race. There's a three-way primary on the Democratic side. And, on the Republican side, there's just one candidate right now. But both parties are really going to be competing for this ground. And it's a state that Democrats are going to have to win back. Trump flipped it in 2024. And it's unclear if Mike Rogers, the Republican, can play offense rather after Gary Peters retired, the outgoing senator. And so what's interesting is that Duggan told me that the Democratic brand is badly damaged statewide in Michigan, which is crucial because you think about it, it's a big union state, it's a big manufacturing state. And the fact that he thinks the Democratic Party brand is so in tatters that he has to run as an independent is quite something. But he also told me the Republican brand is problematic there too. And so he's really kind of a post-partisan in a lot of ways, just a big city, get it done mayor. And so I think his candidacy will tell us a lot about the future of both parties as we move forward.
Absolutely. I just think about the dominance that this two-party system has had in our country for so long, but clearly there are folks who are seeking another way or seeking to redefine their parties, and it just feels like we are at this moment of massive flux right now. So it'll be fascinating to see if there's any lessons Democrats can take out of this, even if they still want to run as a Democrat, right? Taking some of these lessons of how do you move away from partisanship in a campaign environment that increasingly rewards and still rewards partisanship.
And finally, we're keeping an eye on the courthouse in Norfolk, Virginia this morning at 11 a.m. New York Attorney General Letitia James will appear for a hearing on the two felony charges for bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution that she was charged with earlier this month. Yesterday, James filed a notice requesting that her indictment be dismissed. Megan, we've talked a lot about lawfare on this podcast, specifically Trump's revenge tour in Trump 2.0. What do you make of this latest development?
I think to me the one thing that, I'm watching for here is just, the way that we've really seen Democrats, push back on this, sort of lawfare campaign from the president, right? She's going to court, challenging this, saying it's baseless, really putting up a fight. But it reminds me of some of what we're seeing in some of the other cases right now that the president is pursuing against his political enemies. Thinking about Representative Adam Schiff, for instance, right? Our friends over at NBC and some other news outlets had reporting yesterday about the federal mortgage fraud investigation into Adam Schiff stalling. This is, of course, sort of the template that the administration has been using to go after these Democrats. And I think it's fascinating to see, the shortcomings of the strategy, right? I mean, the reason that the administration has chosen to use this is it's pretty broadly applicable. We've talked about on this podcast before that these kinds of statements on mortgage applications are really common, right? So it's very easy to go hunting and find something of this nature and pursue a case. But I really think it feels like in this current moment, we're seeing it be tested and see how effective of a strategy this is to go after these folks. And so time will tell.
And finally, we often like to end the show with something from the Playbook newsletter. And Megan, today it's a video that ran yesterday from Senator Bill Cassidy about radioactive shrimp. It's AI generated. Um, been talking a lot about AI in American politics over the last 7 days. I reported this week about the NRSC doing an AI generated video of Chuck Schumer. They took words from Punchbowl newsletter that he told them, but they put it into an AI generated video, got 1.7 million views. And so what do you make about the future of AI generated videos in American politics based on this latest from Bill Cassidy?
I think to your point, we're seeing such highs and lows here, right? Such at such different ends of the scale. I mean, on one hand, you have these videos that are very misleading and confusing, and folks might not know, did this actually happen? Was it not said? Then you have something like what Senator Bill Cassidy posted, which is this very comic book inspired. No one would believe that this is anything. Obviously, it's very animated, promoting Gulf shrimp and talking about this cautionary tale of eating foreign shrimp. Obviously, meant to be lighthearted. So I think we're really seeing this sort of juxtaposition of the way that AI can be used to entertain and capture the public's imagination to make a political point in a way that's sort of very clear versus the more, misleading, I think really dangerous side of AI, which is just going to confuse the public. And, obviously we saw, some of this emerging, but I just think about the campaign cycles to come and how much more of this we're going to see, going into the 2026 election and 2028. I mean, AI has evolved so much even just since the November election.
Something that we'll be paying attention to, and I think probably talking a lot about even more on this podcast as the months unfold. Megan,
Yeah.
thanks so much for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Adam.
And that's all for today's show, but we have much more news and analysis in the Playbook newsletter, which you can find at politico.com/playbook. We'll be back Monday. Have a great weekend.